Shalom all and welcome. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah school at KosherTorah.com. I have an echo here where I'm at now, my new house in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Well, the last video, I had a little problem with sound being too low. I'm hoping now that our sound with this echo is not going to be too much. So, sorry, one way or another, we'll work to get everything corrected here. Hey, I got a background here, which a good start on things. So we're trying to get things together, organized and stuff like that. But again, little by little, we'll take things and get it all right. But anyway, the topic that we're going to talk about tonight is something that is very foundational, what we teach here at our KosherTorah school. And that's pretty much how to use holy names, Shemot Kodashim, as meditative tools. So, I don't know how many of you are familiar with my book, Walking in the Fire. Should I get that out of my face? Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like that. There you go. Anyway, this is a collection of many, many essays I've written over a number of years. Published this book over 10 years ago. And I outline a lot of teachings that I don't think anyone else has ever really bothered to teach or translate into English ever before. So it teaches a lot of the practical applications and techniques of meditative techniques that are observed in our Torah tradition, many from the Lurianic school of the Ariel, but many others as well. For those of you who are familiar with the different types and styles of techniques of meditation, just remember this. Meditation is a means to an end. The end, of course, is expanding consciousness. That's our universal way of expanding the powers of the mind. But for those of you who are a little bit more comfortable with a traditional Torah way of looking at things, we call this the mitzvah of debikut, bonding with God. Right? You'll find if you look at the enumerations of the commandments in a number of the different codes, debikut, bonding with God, which is based upon a verse, pasuk, from the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 4, which is actually time dating ourselves, spoken about or read this morning in our parasha at Hanan. So, to bond with God is considered a positive commandment. Now, you might think that this bonding with God thing is something rationalistic or simplistic. Well, there's a statement in the Talmud where it says, how do you bond with God? God's not physical. Like bonding, like hands, Well, God's not physical. There's nothing to bond with. So it says, you bond with the sages, the rabbis, who teach you moral and proper behavior. Now, some people dismiss that and say, but that's not meditation. On the contrary, it's the highest form of meditation. How? What do you think meditation and expanding consciousness is all about? To tell you what's up there? Anything and everything that's up there is revealed to us for one reason, and that's to bring it down here. See, this is the big difference between the Torah path and many of the paths of our brothers and sisters in the Orient, specifically in the Hindu and Buddhist and Taoist paths. They achieve tremendous levels of consciousness. They can ascend the heights that the vast majority of people in Western religions will never know and understand. However, they do so in a very specific and almost narrow perspective, meaning they're ascending up. But when you ascend up, they don't want to come back. They believe that their purpose is to be restored to the source. Our Torah tradition has a different context. We believe in ascending up so as to bring down. So we have a cycle. So you'll find that many of those in the Eastern traditions who practice, whether it be the Patanjali Sutras or many of these other traditions, right? They will ascend up in levels of consciousness, and only the rare few will ever seek to return to earth, as the traditional word is avatar. We would call in our tradition tzaddikim, to help others. Okay? So our Torah path specifically is focused on helping others, working with the world. That's what we call it tikkun olam. So meditation is a means to an end. And if you're not going to focus on what the end is, then why on earth are you practicing the means? In a lot of what I call the watered down spirituality of the day today, people practice meditation for relaxation. They consider it to be a more healthier path than alcohol or drug abuse. Needless to say, I applaud those who do take steps to relax themselves and hopefully healthy ways. But that's not really what meditation is geared towards. Meditation is all about self-exploration, self-discovery, and unleashing all our internal latent psychic abilities. The problem, of course, is that when you become aware of these abilities, they can be very, very distracting. We write about this in our Torah traditions. We call these the klipot. Patanjali refers to them also. So when we're dealing with meditation, we must recognize that we're dealing with something, even though I've described it already from a religious point of view. Essentially, what we're dealing with is a psychological phenomenon. Now, we call accomplishing or achieving psychic gifts, expanding the powers of the mind and consciousness. Well, in our Torah tradition, we call that Hasakat Ruach HaKodesh, or achieving divine inspiration. And a point that's made very clear and accurately by Maimonides in his Guide to the Perplexed, go look it up, section 2, chapter 32, if I'm not mistaken. This is a natural development of human consciousness for those who take the steps to make the efforts to evolve. Now, when we talk about Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, obviously brings us into the topic of prophecy. Rambam refers to this as prophecy. Let's not get caught up in words or differences in words. Let's just understand what generally we're talking about now. Expanding the power of the mind is not a gift. It is a process. For those of you who know from the Gemara, the expanding power of the mind requires strengthening of the body. You all know that I place emphasis on weight control, weightlifting, different kind of weights, but bodybuilding, all that stuff. You have to be physically strong in order to accomplish these things. There are specific techniques in the prophetic tradition. We call it the prophetic position. You cannot get into a prophetic position physically if you got belly fat. I mean, literally, you got to roll up into like this curled little ball. You can only do that if you're thin. Now, as you know from my martial arts background, so I could share with you from there as well, those who practiced in the Shaolin or the Wudang schools, they knew this very well. And movement and flow requires that we shed all the klipot, all the excess weight and all the excess baggage. It's not only emotional, psychological, it has to be physical. So for those of you who have issues with your physical health, certainly issues with your weight, you got to get that under control. And don't go looking at me and thinking, well, what do I know? Remember, there was a time in my life when I was terribly overweight. And it got to a point once I was teaching a student martial arts. My student was moving faster than I. And I said, oh, no, that cannot continue. And I took it all off. It took me a while, took discipline, took rigor, but that's what we got to do. So I am also a Baal Teshuvah in that respect. So don't go telling me how hard it is. You're preaching to the choir when you talk to me about that. I know it. And I cannot emphasize again how important physical health, proper eating is instrumental and a necessity for accomplishing levels of expanding consciousness. With that being said, understand now, expanding consciousness and meditation, like I said to you earlier, from a Jewish point of view. All right, we'll speak within the context of the religion of Judaism. I want you to understand that this is not just mysticism or Kabbalah of which we're speaking. You can go right into the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch, right on the first page, and read Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the famous Ramah, and he quotes an old Kabbalistic source. He's not known as a Kabbalist, he's a rationalist, but he quotes something Kabbalistic simply because of its fundamental importance for everyone. He quotes Psalm 16, verse 8, which says, Shavite Hashem l'negdi tamid. I place God before me always. And he says, this is a great rule, klal gadol of the Torah. You can go into the Mishnah Brura, the commentary that is very common in the Ashkenazi communities today. in, again, Shulchan Aruch, chapter 1, Mishnah Berurah, letter 4, go look it up. And he even gives you a special type of vowels to visualize what the name YHWH as a visualization technique. So the reason why I'm telling you all this is for those of you who are not of a mystical or a Kabbalistic bent, but are more traditional Torah observance, I want you to know that this is part and parcel of traditional Torah observance and not something out there, peripheral or fringe. That's why I'm emphasizing this. Now, for those of you, I'm sure you can see me, behind me on both sides there, I put that up especially so you can see them. Those are examples of what we call shvitis. In our Sephardi tradition, we take that verse, Psalm 16:8, and we literally write up different works of art, and we put the name of God prominently displayed so that the presence of God can always be remembered. So now, when we want to talk about expanding consciousness, don't go thinking that all of a sudden you're going to be walking into parallel worlds, becoming aware of all the different entities, good and evil, that are there. No. We got to start step by step. Number one, the vast majority of you who are listening to me now, I'll bet you already, you have a sensitivity. Usually those are the types of people that are attracted to our KosherTorah school. People who already have some type of a sensitivity to something, right? You can use the Star Wars term saying you have a sensitivity with the Force or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you understand what I'm saying because that is an expression of your sensitivity of these things. In that respect, we all have, like Rambam stated, the ability, the latent ability of developing expanding awareness, which is what we call expanding consciousness. The first things that you become aware of the things inside yourself. So when you read about the stories of Ezekiel or Eliyahu Navi, especially with Ezekiel, which we know is Maaseh Merkabah, which is what we teach here, first things he came in contact with was what he called the storm, the cloud, the fire. These are what we refer to as the klipot. They are the states of the disturbances of mind and emotion dealing with the subconscious content, which need to be addressed to bring clarity to the mind and the heart. Every meditative tradition around the world teaches this exact same thing. Everyone calls in their own different words. But remember, we're dealing with here as a psychological phenomenon, which therefore makes it equal to everybody across our globe. As a matter of fact, anybody who has a human soul, regardless if they're in human form or whatever, it's the same thing. We all have to deal with our internal, what we can call, baggage. And that's usually the hard part. Most people don't want to face it. Most people don't want to deal with it. When I take on private students, and I do so very rarely, that's the first thing that I force them to face is the real deal. Now, I'll share with you, I found some very, very strong private students. And when I find them, I go after them. Like the verse says in Psalm 23, goodness and mercy pursues me, runs after me. When I recognize in somebody who's got that, I go after them because I know that they can excel in the value of good that they can bring to the world. Now, I'm going to share with you something else. Right now, we have a midrash, a very, very famous midrash, which states it was in the merit of women that we were redeemed from Egypt, and it's in the merit of women that we will be redeemed in the days of Mashiach. If you look at the state of women in our world today, it is so deplorably horrible. Women are treated, as you know, as whores. Let's be very blunt to give my graphic language. They're treated the most despicable way. And women self-abuse themselves and look at themselves as being no more value than their physical selves. This is such a horrible, horrible state of affairs that needs to be addressed. And we want to talk about Tikkun Shekhinah, which is the revival of the world, bringing Mashiach. Again, all the Kabbalists talk. It's about bringing the light down to earth. The earth is the feminine. All of the meditation, really, really, ladies out there, you gals need to be focused. You're the ones who need to become the new prophetesses, because everything's going to start or end with you. Kosher Torah school's out here now. And due respect, I take very, very strong precautions if I deal with female students in that respect. Personally, I try never to actually meet physically with any female student other than under very prescribed circumstances. But the teaching's got to go out. These things have to happen. Guys, you're not left out by any means. But I want the women to know, even though you might think, again, talking from a Jewish point of view, you might think that this is what we call in Hebrew a positive mitzvah, a positive commandment that is incumbent only upon time. No, this is something psychological that's applicable to everybody. And if you really want to expand and experience the higher realms, then you got to do so properly. You got to get through the klipot, you got to get through the dark and the dirty, and you got to do what's right. And I know that's hard, but that's what needs to be done. Okay? The purpose, changing the world, nothing less than that. We each have a connection. Jung would call it to the collective unconscious. In the Kabbalah, we say we're all sub-sparks, if you will, of the greater soul of collective man, of Adam HaKlali, Adam HaRishon. In that respect, each and every one of us has the ability to tap into the collective and to influence it for good, or for that matter, for evil. I'm encouraging, hopefully, that people will do it for good. So this is what we need to focus on. And now that we have all these general things in understanding, let's talk about practical techniques. Again, in my book, Walking on the Fire, I outline a lot of these techniques. But I want to share with you in this class, as well as in some to come, basic techniques that you can and should be using to help expand consciousness. I'm going to start right from the beginning, right with the Shulchan Aruch, the foundations of Judaism, based upon, again, Psalm 16, verse 8, placing the name of God before you always. Very, very simple tool. For those of you who do not know the name of God, Yud, K, Vav, K, you can easily find the 4 Hebrew letters, obviously, behind me here. And you can find them on any kind of a web search, looking at a Torah or anything else. We are taught to visualize the letters of the name, to close your eyes and to visualize the letters. Sound, we'll get to sound in a bit. Let's stay first here with visual. When you visualize God's name, you are A, fulfilling the commandment, but B, it's not enough that you just remember the presence of God. You have to cultivate a relationship of constant awareness. And the way I've taught this over many years is to teach people, begin a relationship with the letters themselves. This is based upon the Abulafian technique that's found in Sefer Cheshek. We call it in modern Jungian psychology active imagination. And the technique is very simple. I tell people, when you go up to the letters, when you visualize the letters, go up to them as if they are actual personalities. That's right out of Abulafia. And I say, talk to them. Begin conversation. Go up to the letter Yud and talk to the letter Yud. Now, I always tell people, keep a little journal by their side where they do their meditations. Always write down your impressions, your feelings, and your thoughts. Allow your mind to imagine. Allow it to go free. Now, in Sha'ar Ruach HaKodesh of the Ariel, he states that there is very interesting revelations about the nature of one's soul that are revealed by how one sees the letters. When you visualize the letters in your own mind's eye, are they big? Are they small? Are they black? Are they white? Are they two-dimensional, three-dimensional? Well, how and what do you actually see? Now, please don't answer my question now. These are things for you to contemplate and to discuss. So step one, I wrote about this again in my book, Call Upon My Name, 26 years ago. Visualize the letters, instigate, create a relationship with each and every one. Create it in your own mind. You could say, well, I'm making it up as I go along, but that's fine. Allow your imagination and your intellect to work together, and then allow your imagination to just take over. You will find that unconscious content coming from the higher self, coming from these spiritual worlds, will seep in, even through your subconscious garbage. It'll put thoughts into your mind, feelings into your heart, words into your mouth. And you go, where did that come from? That's what we're looking for. That's how we jumpstart the system. The first things that are going to come to mind, to heart, are all that subconscious content, that klipot, which need to be erased, pretty much healed. I always tell people, when you visualize and you have some experiences of fear, that some monsters, there's some demons, some evil thing, we don't seek to kill it and destroy it. We seek to heal it. We seek to cure it. Now, in the series that I'm doing right now for my private students in our KosherTorah school about expanding human consciousness, I go into all these things in detail from the writings of the Ariel and the Ben Ish Chai. So for those of you who are interested in becoming, contributing students to our school on a monthly basis, go look up all the details on KosherTorah.com website. And if you feel so inclined that this is for you, call me up, email me. My information is right there on the KosherTorah.com page. I'm more than happy to sign you up, give you access to our courses. You can take better in-depth learning than what I can provide for you here in these short little videos. Getting back to the point. When you cultivate a relationship with the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, whether it be the Yud or the Hey, the Vav or the Hey, you pay attention to how the letters look to you. Now again, in my book, Walking the Fire, I outline all the different details of what each and every letter is supposed to mean, but not how it's supposed to look, because there's no supposed to about it. That's a projection of your own, and that is what we pay attention to. So this is one of the techniques that we use when we're expanding consciousness. This is a tool to help you become sensitive to and aware of your own inner feelings and inner thoughts, to become more sensitive to and aware of those inner rumblings within you. We're trying to get rid of all the hindrances so that you can get a clear reception. Think of it, if you will, of like tuning in a station on television or radio. Remember the days before we had cable? In which, you get static. We're trying to get through the static to get clarity. And that is usually a very uncomfortable experience, which makes meditation something other than just relaxing. Sometimes it can be rather traumatic. For those of you who are familiar with traditions in other systems of meditation, you'll find that they go through this exact same thing. All the inner turmoil, it needs to be overcome. So don't be afraid of it. Don't run away from it. Don't think you're failing. On the contrary, this is the path. This is the way. Remember something. God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's not the name of a person. Even though Abu Lafayette says that when you visualize God, you're supposed to visualize it as a person, all right? He does that simply as a means, as a technique, which sometimes today I find to be more detrimental than helpful. And I'll tell you why. Because we want to think of God. We've got to stop thinking of God as some kind of a person. In all of our traditional religious literature, God is a he, God is a guy, is always portrayed in anthropomorphic ways. People take this symbolism, if not physically or literal in their minds, at least emotionally. I find that to be very much a hindrance. Understand God, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Understand God's name as a truth of the reality underlying the essence. God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, actually comes from a root Hebrew verb, hey, vav hey, which is the root of the verb to be. It's in the passive tense, and you take a yod, which is a prefix of action, and you attach it to the passive verb, and it turns it into active. God's name would literally translate as active being, consciousness, presence, awareness, life itself. And each and every letter is therefore understood as a code, each and every letter having meaning to the four worlds, to the four levels of personality, to the four levels of soul, on and on. Again, my book, I explain all of this stuff. The book's available on Amazon.com for those of you who want to pursue the information. But we cultivate an experience. Did you hear what I said? Not just knowledge, experience with ourselves through God's name. Our job, again, is to ascend on high, expanding consciousness, with the intent of bringing those revelations down into ourselves, into our lives, so we can expand it out. That's tikkun olam, tikkun malchut, tikkun shekhinah, all the same concepts roll up into one. This is one of the basic techniques. There's one other technique I'm going to give you now. This is a little bit more elaborate, will most likely require of you knowledge of Hebrew, for those of you who know Hebrew or want to learn it. And that is a system which we call Shemot Kodashim, holy names. I'm not going to talk about the 72 triad name or the 42 letter name. I've taught courses on that, and we have those courses available. Go to our KosherTorah.com website, and right on the front page you'll see all those courses on holy names for those who want to study that. But now I'm going to give you another technique of how you can actually use Tanakh, the Bible, to extract a tool, which we call a name, which can help you focus on a specific intent. The technique is this. Read in the Tanakh any verse that has meaning to you, right? Whatever the verse is, a verse that speaks about protection, a verse that speaks about love, a verse that gives you promises of well-being, whatever, a verse that talks about healing. Well, we have a technique. That's the foundation of the 72 triad name, where in which you would take the letters of a specific verse, in Hebrew, of course, and you would write them out to create a triad. In other words, you take the letters and divide them into threes. You would take 1/3 of all the letters and write it straight out, the second third and write them backwards, and then the last third and write them forward. And you'd create triplets of letters, forward, back, forward. Sometimes you don't get exactly 3. You might be left over with 1 letter or 2. Oh, well, that happens. We'll just let it hang. Because this is not really a special name. We call it a Shem Kadosh. And you'll find the books like Shoresh Shemot, Rabbi Moshe Sechuto is filled with this type of formula. But, we read in the Torah tradition where we said that the entire Torah is the name of God. Well, that's what this is based on. So the technique is we create combinations of sounds which are built upon a specific verse, which itself has meaning and intent. Now you can ask, well, what vowels do I put with the individual letters? And the answer is vowels which we call in Hebrew Pituche Hotam. The 5 base vowels, which we know from English so well, as A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. In the Hebrew, every letter has its base vowel, and the base vowel is how you pronounce the letter. So Aleph is A from Aleph. Bet is A from Bet. Gimel is I, Gimel. Dalet, Da, Dalet, etc. and so on. Again, cover that in my book, Walking in the Fire. We've covered this in all the courses. You take then the verse of Scripture and you divide it into the triads, like I said, and you apply to them in each its base vowels. And therefore you have triplets of different sounds. According to our understanding, what you have done is extracted what we call the soul and meaning of the verse from its original literal context. And this combination of letters and vowels becomes a chant, a mantra. And while we're reciting this chant, this mantra, with the intent of going off into a trance state of consciousness, we're focusing on the meaning of what the verse meant before we apply this formula to it, whether it be for healing, for love, for prosperity, whatever your personal favorite pasuk verse is. I've shown this system in my book, Walking in the Fire. I've taught the system on numerous other occasions. And when we extract from a pasuk, a verse, this is now the 72 triad names. This comes from 3 verses of 72 letters. Okay, there are other, like I said in the book of Shorish Shemot, all based upon this formula. You can create your own. Go look in everywhere in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. Find any verse that you can split up into 3 ways. Like I said, if you have a hanging letter, don't worry about it. This is only a technique. It's a tool. Nothing has to be so precise. The point is that it's a means to an end. So when you use this tool to focus on the intent and meaning of the pasuk, that is its purpose. Now you might comment and say, well, I can just meditate on the meaning and intent of the verse itself. Of course you can. But being that you don't have a chant to go along with it, you don't have a focus of a tool external, you don't always make the connection from the inside and the mind to the outside. So that's why inner and outer connection uses this technique. I might add, for those who are familiar with the meditative traditions of many in the Eastern schools, they do the exact same thing with their own systems, each in their own way. That's why we chant. That's why we use a mantra. That's their word, but it works for us as well. This is how Shemot Kodeshim are brought about. Don't think that they're so sacred and holy and you can't pronounce them. That's a bunch of superstitious nonsense. These are not the 7 names of God enumerated in Jewish law, which you're not supposed to pronounce or show respect for. These are formulas of application whose specific intent is to help focus the mind to become more sensitive to and aware of inner content. And as you become more sensitive to and aware of inner content, you become sensitive to and aware of greater outer content. When you meet people, you get a sense and a feeling about them. When you see people, even on the computer, you can sense their feelings, their thoughts, their ideas, their nature, their personality. Sometimes even read their emotions or read their minds. Yes, even through the avenue that we have here, the vehicle now of computer technology. Why? Because right now, for example, you're seeing my image electronically projected through this video through our computer. Now, you and I don't know each other physically, but you and I have a psychic tab through the collective unconscious. By you connecting again in your mind to the concept of me, using my voice or the projection of my voice or image, you now have an external tool to complement with the internal tool, and therefore we connect. And we can communicate. And therefore, our communication does not necessarily require a telephone, doesn't require email or texting. We can communicate mind to mind. Now, being that I do not know you, I might not be aware of or as sensitive to your communicating to me as you might feel I am communicating with you. By you seeing me now, by me interacting with you now, I've had this experience. People feel that I am talking to you personally. Maybe I am, and I don't even know it myself. Why? Because there's an element or an aspect inside me as I'm speaking now that's guiding my thoughts, guiding my feelings, guiding my words as I speak. You know, I don't speak with a script. I just wing it, as they say, and whatever comes out, comes out. So somehow, somewhere, in some way, these words that I'm saying now might have a special meaning to somebody special, maybe listening to me live right now, or listening to this recording a week, a month, a year, 10 years from now. And am I speaking to you? I guess really I am. And you'll know that. And I might not know who you are in my conscious mind. I might not have any idea who you are in my conscious mind. But deep down within, there is a connection. This is what we must always understand. Because we want to talk about communicating, sending out messages. This is the way we do it. If you have a need in this world, okay, whether it be for finances, finding your soulmate, health and healing, anything that you need from the universe, from outside, you project it out. Bring it to me. And you open yourself up again. Cyclical type of thing. When we talk about in the martial arts, everything is cyclical. Okay? You project it out so it can come back. In the Kabbalah tradition, we call this the unity of Or Yashar and Or Choser. Descending light and ascending light. We call it the Tikkun of Ma and Ben. We call it the unity of Tiferet and Malchut. In the Oriental tradition, they refer to it as Yin and Yang. Same thing. Everything's cyclical. Everything's always moving. That's what you must always understand. So when you seek to use any of these two techniques that I've just described, it's not the focus on the right technique. The technique is a means to an end. It's a tool. For those in our Orthodox Torah tradition, we place so much focus on what we call halacha, the right way. People think that if you do the right way, then magic, things happen. No, not really. Think about it like this. I want to build a motorcycle, a car, and I put absolutely everything together precisely and exactly the way it's supposed to work. What happens when I turn on the engine? Dramatic pause for you to think. Nothing. Why? Did you put gasoline in the engine? Oh, no, you forgot about the gasoline, right? Well, that's the same thing with meditation. You can have all the right technique, but there's one secret key ingredient. Cheshek, passion, desire. You have to want this. This cannot be just an academic exercise on your part. This has to arise from your heart. Like it says in Torah, we're in this week's Torah portion just this morning. These words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. Loving God, remember what God is, the universal reality, with all your heart. You have to have the passion. Abu Lafi called it cheshek. Okay? This is the gasoline in the engine. When you truly desire, you will draw to yourself that which you need, that which you crave. My personal life, I have those things that I need. I call out to the universe. If there's something very practical down to earth that I need, I'll go out to the grocery store. I'll go get what I need. But there are some things that are beyond my hands to get. So I project out. I project out into the collective consciousness of Adam Rishon, collective humanity. I project out into the universe, the active consciousness and sentience of being. I visualize God's name. I project out my needs. And I sit and I wait. And I know that it comes back. I'm not a wealthy man financially. I've never sought great financial wealth like many of my peers. They do. I seek other things. And when I've sought, God has blessed me to accomplish. With finances, I put out my needs. God provides. I have everything that I need. God provides. There are other things in my personal life that right now I am seeking. God will provide. How will I know? Because I seek with expanded consciousness. I sense, I feel. And I've learned from my experience to trust my feelings. And when I follow them, when I say feelings, I don't mean my emotions. Emotions are one thing, deep down intuitive psychic sense. Now, my deep down intuitive psychic sense might not always guide me, or I should say, give me what I think. But I've learned from the experiences that when I follow what I know in faith, I learn so many things. I see the wisdom in the path. That's why, like we say, the righteous live by their faith. I know and I understand this. So when I sense, I can feel in that inner intuitive awareness, I follow, I listen. Sometimes I might even close off a bit of my rational mind. At least I'll close off my doubts, my fears. Even though I keep the rest of my rational mind going. I don't want to be too crazy. But I'm sharing with you practical, realistic techniques, not only of how to create a name, how to visualize God's name, but what you can expect from doing these things. You must become more sensitive. You must be open to the sensitivity you receive. You must be able to deal with your own unconscious inner content, the subconscious is going to come up, to be able to deal with it all. Because it is your natural development, your destiny to grow. I promise you, you will accomplish this lifetime or many lifetimes to come. Remember, reincarnation's big Kabbalah thing. This is a technique. This is a path. All you have to do is walk it to accomplish it. Everything that I have here at our KosherTorah school is at your disposal to do this. This is why I teach my private courses to my student body. Come learn with us. Come experience for yourself. Learn deeper than where you're at. And if this course is right for you, you already know it. And if it's right for you, you know where to reach me. That's why I'm here. So in that respect, let's conclude. I've already said what I need to say. I believe you already know what you need to know. And the wise words of Hillel, I try to close all my classes with this. Zil Gomor. Go and do it. Give glory, give light, shine light, be a light. Make a difference in this world. Make yourself better. Expand consciousness. Learn to use the Force. And like in Star Wars, it says, may the Force be with you. May Hashem be with you. Hashem's already with you. Shine that light. Make a difference. Thank you again for listening. I'm Ariel from the KosherTorah School. See you all online. Kol Tov. Shalom.